Hello, I am Jason Mann from Ticketer and I head up product within our UK business. I don't think there's any need for me to say how much we have been disrupted in our day-to-day lives during 2020, from plummeting passenger numbers to meetings taking place over video conferencing. Every aspect of life as we knew it has changed during 2020. But at Ticketer, we are proud to say that one thing did remain constant, and that was the regular and continual ETM and portal upgrades that Ticketer customers have been familiar with. But what we did miss last year were being able to catch up with our old and new operators at the various trade shows and events that we regularly attended. These events and shows were always great opportunities, not only to catch up with our operators, but also to showcase some of our new features to all of our customers. And we realised that without this avenue, some of the hard work our development teams have been focused on this past year may have gone unnoticed. So as we start a new year, a year we hope will end up much better than the last one, we felt it was a good opportunity to take a retrospective look at the developments that we released during 2020, just in case there was something in there that you may have missed. It should be no surprise that I start this review by discussing our passenger occupancy feature. We recognised early on in the pandemic that social distancing on buses could present issues, and so we mobilised our development teams quickly to develop an enhancement to our ETM to allow the driver to quickly and efficiently count passengers off, which then allowed the ETM to maintain a count of how many passengers were on board. Primarily, we did this for the driver's benefit, so they could always see how many people were on board without having to leave their cab. But that wasn't the end of that feature. We extended it to also count when the wheelchair spaces were occupied. We developed an extension to Siri to forward this information onto third-party systems such as mobile apps. Passengers could also see this information as the bus approached the bus stop via an integration with the Hanover destination displays. And we have extended the back office to collect and display this data. That wasn't the only COVID-related development, of course. Earlier in the pandemic, we worked closely with the DfT on being able to generate the COVID bus service support grant directly from the ticketer system, thus making it easier for ticketer operators to be able to meet the necessary data requirements in order to qualify for the grant and avoiding spending hours collating the necessary data to do so. Another example of working closely with the DfT to support our operators, which continued throughout 2020, was our support of the Bus Open Data Initiative, or BODS, more of which I will cover later. An earlier COVID development, of course, was supporting the increased limits for using contactless EMV cards, which was increased from £30 to £45, which we delivered in time for the change to take effect on the 1st of April, even though we only had a couple of weeks' notice that this change was coming. That wasn't our only contactless EMV change in 2020. We also worked with Apple to support Apple Pay Express on our ETMs for both tap transactions, but also retail transactions, thereby removing the need for passengers to unlock their phones with Face ID when using this method of payment on bus. Avoiding using Face ID to unlock the phone also meant that passengers didn't need to remove their face mask when paying for this way. We had no idea when we started to engage with Apple on this, that this would be the primary driver for this feature. Recognising that contactless methods of ticketing were key during the pandemic, we also enhanced our solution with regards to accepting QR codes. We extended our paper QR schema to provide a more robust way to manage multi-operator QR codes to help with the increasing number of multi-operator schemes we started to see emerge. We introduced the ability to hotlist QR codes from the portal. So QR codes, like ITSO cards and EV cards, could be declined by the ETM should the operator suspect fraudulent use or through lost paper tickets. And who would have thought that that would have been possible a few years ago? And we introduced the ability to report on any failed QR usage. For example, should the QR code be expired, not valid on that particular service, or even when blocked. Another of the ticketer features that gained increased use during the pandemic was our incident management feature, where we have extended the old insurance button to be able to print advisory slips for any multitude of reasons. A topical example being recording when passengers were not wearing face masks. Recognising it as a wider usage, we extended this capability not require an advisory slip to be printed at all. So if you just wanted the drivers to record when the bus could not pick up further passengers at a stop due to the bus being full, the driver could simply issue an incident of could not pick up, which would simply record the event and which could be reported in the back office, thereby giving the operator more data about what's happening on their network. We also added the ability for these incidents to be included in a Siri feed to third-party systems such as apps. So if you wanted your app to know when your vehicle had been deep cleaned mid-service, this could be added as a new incident and will be forwarded to any Siri feed anytime this event was issued. This was implemented in a purely generic way, so this could be applied to any incident any operator wanted to define. We also found some time to implement some non-COVID developments, of course. At the end of 2019, which seems like a lifetime ago now, we were demonstrating our ability to integrate with both Hanover and Mobitech destination displays. We have added enhancements to both of these last year, as well as adding passenger occupancy information to the Hanover destination display, which was mentioned earlier. We also added a departure countdown feature to Mobitech destination displays. Not only that, but we also added support for a third supplier, ICE's destination displays and AV screens, all of which can be driven by the ticketer ETM. Whilst on the topic of on-bus integrations, we know that the reality is that many operators will have different equipment from different suppliers on different vehicles. And so we quickly realised that managing hardware differences when connecting to different equipment on these buses with per ETM configurations was going to be complex, time-consuming and suboptimal. And so we developed the concept of vehicle config profiles, which allows operators to define what equipment is on what bus. Whilst this enhancement was driven from the need to support different destination displays primarily, the development again is generic and can be applied to any hardware that the ETM may want to connect to. Whilst on the subject of vehicle-related developments, our vehicle checklist feature had a number of enhancements added during last year. From the ability to augment any reported defects with additional notes from the portal, to extending the reports to include vehicles checked, not just those with reported defects. But the biggest change was the introduction of an API that can be used by third-party fleet management systems to receive data regarding reported defects from the ticketer system into that fleet management system. But equally can also be used to pass data back from the fleet management system, so details about the defects and what have been rectified, etc., thereby avoiding any rekeying of data between the two systems when managing engineers' tasks. This key development is a major efficiency gain if, as an operator, you are using a fleet management system to manage engineer jobs and workloads. Now, I appreciate at this stage some of you may be dropping off here, and I've only just scratched the surface of some of the new developments that were added during 2020. You'll be pleased to hear that I won't go into detail into all of them. Thankfully, I hear you say. So I'll just do a quick roll call to call out some of the additional notables. The ability to define a home screen on the ETM per service or set of services, which include popular tickets for that service. We also added the ability to save a draft of driver messages on the ETM and being able to see any messages sent that day from that driver. We introduced manual screen dimming controls, very helpful for this time of year when it's very dark. We added support for the ITSO SCR capping scheme in the Nottingham area. We added enhancements to coupons to issue per transaction, not for every ticket, and the ability to print third-party QR codes onto coupons themselves. We added additional fields to our ticket and trip exports when importing the data into data warehouse systems. We introduced a new look menu for the portal a couple of weeks ago. We also added recording events when entering and exit, defined depot geofences, and trip measurements which we'll start to make more use of during this year. The list goes on. I'm pleased to say that despite what last year has thrown at us, we have been continually upgrading the portal and making ETM upgrades available to operators. So rounding off the summary, the final development to highlight was the changes we introduced to support the DFT's open data program. As well as being able to deliver Siri feeds for our operators, we developed the capability to export and host trans-exchange files for timetables in the required DFT schema, and the ability to export and host NetX files for fares. This last one was the final development of 2020, delivered at the end of the year. And we are now working with the DFT to work on changes to the schema that had already been identified, and no doubt many more to come. So, what of this year? Well, rest assured, our appetite for continually improving our solution has not diminished, even though, like yourselves, we were all very shattered at the end of 2020. And we already have some very exciting developments lined up. The first of which we hope to deliver at the end of January is our road restriction alerts feature, a solution that will alert drivers when they are in the proximity of a road with restricted access, i.e. a bridge. We will be releasing more news on that later this month. But there will be plenty of other things in 2021. There will be extensions to the DFT's Open Data BODS program, as the schema will inevitably change. We are planning to expand our passenger occupancy feature with more reports and analysis of the data, and investigating some hardware solutions that we can integrate so that we can remove the manual task of the driver recording alighting passengers. We have been looking at new operational pages to follow on from our tracking enhancements that we delivered as part of the passenger occupancy feature. More changes to the vehicle checklist feature following feedback from operators as planned, and so on. As usual, we are not short of things to look at next. Hopefully, the road to recovery for our nation is in sight, and we'll be able to meet up with all of our operators shortly. And we look forward to seeing you at one of those regular events. In the meantime, I hope you found this review useful and possibly enlightening. And if anything I discuss is of interest, please do not hesitate to contact myself or the support team here at Ticketer for more details. Thank you.